production there, and he knew who I was, and he asked me to come and join them as a producing executive.
So this big blockbuster took off, and then Bruce Lee left us.
Well, Bruce sadly died before it came out.
So you weren't able to do anything more with that, except...
Well, after all this time, we are just in process now of doing a prequel.
That's very interesting. How do you do that, and what is the function of that?
Well, I mean, Enter the Dragon has had such a loyal following for so many years, and I think to a large degree because of Bruce. I mean, Bruce was such an amazing actor and such an amazing martial arts talent, and but the story, the picture there has such a loyal following. It still plays everywhere in the world on television, over and over again, and so we went to Warner's with an idea as to how to do a prequel, which is, in a sense, how that character came to be that was in Enter the Dragon.
Oh, so it's a new film. It'll be something totally
new, and we will find, I'm sure with a worldwide search, the young Bruce Lee.
And then that'll be before Enter the Dragon happened.
Yeah, before Enter the Dragon happened.
Well, talking about before and after, you're working on a documentary that's so interesting too.
Oh, fascinating.
What's it called?
It's called, we're calling it The American Dream, and it's the story. It is a distillation. And we don't know how many hours it's going to be yet because the subject is so vast, but on the American National Archives.
Oh, that could take forever.
Well, the National Archives are so vast, the biggest problem is to try to even figure out how vast they are.
Well, and then how do you...
Well, we're going to going to Washington, and where they're headquartered. They have branches in 14 other places, plus all the presidential libraries, plus the patent office, plus all of the communications from all branches of the government.
You mean the National Archives, not just the archives of film?
No, the
world.
They have George Washington's feed bills for his troops. They have the first photographs ever made in the United States. They have 9 million photographs in the archives.
Have you already been working on it?
Well, only hypothetically. We're waiting. I mean, as a matter of fact, when I get home, I've got to go send. Our contracts are going back and forth with the financing of it.
The other thing that I think is fascinating is this documentary on In High Places. Is that what it's called?
That's not a documentary. That's going to be a feature film.
It's a feature film.
That's a dramatic film.
But when I read about it, it seemed like it would be a documentary because tell us what happened. The guy who was climbing Everest.
Well, it's the story of the first man, George Mallory, to ever ascend Everest. Nobody had ever tried to climb Everest before that. And in the early 1920s, he went with a British expedition to Everest. First time that the Tibetan government had allowed anybody in, because they always felt it was very sacred, and the old Dalai Lama died, the new one, and the British pushed very hard, because they didn't really care about Everest. They wanted to map Tibet.
Yeah.
And this was an excuse.
Oh, they went to and they used Everest.
They used Everest as an excuse, and this young guy, George Mallory, climbed higher than anybody had ever climbed in anybody's lifetime, and he became back a hero. So Everest became an exciting place.
Well, what happened then when you say they found the body? They found a body.
Well, in his third attempt at Everest, he was about 1,000 feet from the top.
But he'd already conquered it once, and then
no, he'd never reached the top. He'd never reached the summit. No, each time he tried, they got higher and higher. And this last time, it's a very exciting story. The last time, it's about 1,000 feet from the top. They were watching with the telescope his progress from below, and the clouds came in, and he never came down.
So we don't know if he got to the top or not.
We don't know if he got to the top or not. Now, this was about 3 in the afternoon. He always had they all had sunglasses because the sun is so intense. His sunglasses, when they found his body in 1999, 75 years later, perfectly preserved. His sunglasses were in his pocket.
Unreal.
So he obviously had been there after the sun went down.
Oh, right.
So there was this space of time in which he could have done it. And, you know, nobody will ever know.
So we have to
He always had a little camera. They haven't found the camera.
We have to see Paul Hellers in high places.
Have to see in high places.
Thanks, Paul. And I'm so glad you came with us. I know you've taught a lot at UCLA and NYU, and you've worked at the Skirball, and we're glad that you took the time to come and see us.
Oh, well, it was a pleasure. You're a wonderful hostess.
Thank you. And don't go away. We'll be right back with author Matthias Levy. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Swiss-born Matthias Levy is a graduate of City College, New York, and Columbia University. He's a former professor at Columbia University and Pratt Institute, and he's lectured at the universities, many universities throughout the world. Matthias has written several science books, things that I couldn't understand, but they were Why the Earthquakes, Engineering the City, Why Buildings Fall Down, and his latest, Why the Wind Blows. Engineering, which garnered awards in teaching and writing, is your specialty. How did they all mix for you?
Well, basically, I was a consulting engineer for many, many years. You know, I taught. That was not my primary function. I taught on the side.
Oh, I see.
But no, I actually designed buildings and structures and bridges, and I did that for many, many years.
So designing those things, like you designed the Rose Center in New York, which is the newest, hottest thing to go and visit, the Javits Convention Center, the Marriott Marquis, and in Boston, the One Financial, in Argentina and Belgium. How do you get those jobs, and who actually goes about finishing what you've designed?
Well, basically, I'm an engineer, so I'm employed by an architect. An architect engages me to do a particular project for them. I do the engineering work on the job.
I see, I see.
And that's how it all works out.
So they come to you,
yes.
And then you solve the problems.
Very often, yes.
What are the problems in some of those things? Say like in Boston or Buenos Aires, didn't you do something in?
Yes, well, right outside of Buenos Aires, there's a town called La Plata, and I designed a stadium there, which is very similar in terms of concept to the stadium I designed in Atlanta, which is the Georgia Dome. It's a covered dome. And the kind of roof that I used there is an idea that I came up with, I patented actually, and it's a fabric roof supported by cables, very, very light and very, very airy.
So is it permanent?
Absolutely permanent, yes, because the fabric is a permanent fabric.
And talking about these domes, I know you said you invented, it's called 10-star.
That's correct.
And it is used all over the world, and it's used like out in a field. Could you use it for big groups of people, or does it have to be permanent?
Well, it's designed to be a permanent structure.
Oh, it is.
And it's designed, you know, to be used in any kind of a permanent structure. That's why a stadium or in a large arena, those are the best uses for it.
Why don't they use those kind of things over courtyards? Say, we have the museum here in Los Angeles, and those buildings were connected by different things. Why couldn't they use that kind of a skin or something like that to close them together?
Well, you can do that, and there are a number of places where they've used something like umbrellas over courtyards.
But are we out of the same material?
Made out of the same material. It's a fiberglass, Teflon covered fiberglass material.
They use it a lot in the Far East, or does it matter, or is it?
It's actually, we actually designed a stadium in Saudi Arabia, which was built. It happened to have been an air-supported structure, but same material, fabric, the same fabric. It's been around now for 20 years.
Does it wear out?
Well, eventually it'll wear out, yes, and it'll be replaced. And
so
the
it's easy
fabric
to
will be replaced.
So the structure underneath